On today's episode, we will be discussing bushmeat and wet markets, the trade and practice that endangers our world. Now, this is a little more of a serious topic. And we're going to start off by giving a brief explanation of the bush trade and what wet markets do to all of us. Now, I'm going to give you to my good friend, Dom.
Thank you, Dom. Throughout our world, the trade of wildlife and their meat, along with other things like Chinese medicine, is a widespread practice. From free-range chickens to bears and tigers, humans eat and consume it all. But this practice considerably harms the environment and the people around us. For example, the recent COVID-19 outbreak is caused from consuming wildlife. COVID-19 and SARS, along with many other viruses, originate from wet markets that specialize in the practice of consuming wild animals. Now, COVID-19 originally reportedly originated from a wet market in Wuhan, China. These diseases are transferred because of the poor keeping conditions and just the animals carrying unknown diseases at the time. European countries and many other countries like the USA have begun banning the trade of bushmeat. Honestly, some have actually been banned for quite a while now. A good example would be that the CDC made bushmeat imported from Africa illegal in the USA. You can get up to a $250,000 fine if you break this law. Currently in China, the Wuhan wet markets are being closed due to the COVID-19 outbreak, and that was caused from eating bats. While many animals are being affected by this, from the great apes to little pangolins, they're also being contributed to the dangers of Eastern medicine. For example, white rhinoceros. The last male white rhinoceros, named Sudan, died just a little while ago. He wouldn't be the last if it wasn't for the trade of rhinoceros horns. Now, back to my friend Dom. Dom here. Thank you, Dom. Now, God said we must care and protect the plants and animals on this planet. The planet He made for us and the animals, we're all sharing a gift from Him. Now, God, being the ones that built this, told us to protect it. And in all honesty, we're not doing that currently. We're hunting and farming them in inhumane ways, involving the wet markets, the bushmeats, all that kind of thing. It's all inhumane. The cages these animals are being farmed in the wet markets are small cubicles, along with factory farms. So it's not only the wildlife that's being affected, it's also farmed animals. Now, in China, they are breeding bears, tigers, pangolins, bats, all those things in order to be used for consumption. Now, it's not a humane way to die. They're kept in these small cages for all their lives. They're either underfed or overfed. They're eating their own feces. They're stacked on top of each other. It's a terrible, miserable existence, and it's not fair for them. Now, although the wet markets are meant to prove that meat is fresh, it is. You can't get it wrong. It is fresh. But at the same time, you're making these animals watch their brothers die. And it is completely and utterly unfair. To solve this, we need to find groups in solidarity with other people who practice this and rally together to end this crisis. It is morally wrong. It is incredibly wrong. Protecting God's creation is one of our greatest responsibilities, and we are violating that principle right now. Now back to now we're going to take a Catholic perspective on the consumption of wildlife. Just as Dom just stated, we need to respect and love God's creation. We wouldn't be where we are without the world He made for us and the creatures we share it with. Now, the Pope has made a statement on this. He states, or he reminds us, we read in the gospel that Jesus says of the birds and of the air that not one of them is forgotten before God. Luke 12:6. How can we possibly mistreat them or cause them harm? We have to take the birds, for example, into consideration. Day by day, people ignore them. The wrongdoings to our wildlife is continuously ongoing. He also reminds us that each organism, as a creature of God, is good and admirable in itself. And as a humane nation states, he condemns the view that humankind has absolute dominion over all other creatures. As a misinterpretation of God's grant of domain over creation, the Pope stands on the side of the CST principles in this matter. He feels as though we treat the animals inhumanely, stating, the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that experimentation on animals is morally acceptable only if it remains within the reasonable limits and contributes to the caring for or saving human lives. Human power has limits, and that it is contrary to human dignity to cause animals to suffer or die needlessly. Now, if you take that into consideration, he is saying that, well, in a way, this all contributes to wildlife and animal cruelty, because this is animal cruelty and the destruction of our environment. He is saying that we should not be torturing them. We should be treating them with respect, because God treats them with respect. Now, thank you for our time. This was Dom News.